Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Series 4. This is Not Funny Guys Presents Red Dwarf Rewatch, and we are moving right along as we dive further and further into the greatest British science fiction show ever created. No, I'm just kidding. Someone is going to come after me and say, what about Doctor Who? Or no, okay. In my opinion, growing up, it is one of the greatest comedy sci-fi shows ever created. Fight me over it. I don't care. We moved on to Series 4 now, folks. And of course, we've actually jumped 2 years ahead. And this apparently was due to some studio moving. And this episode itself, Camille, was released as a Valentine's Day episode, which is strangely enough because right around the same time we had the Gulf Wars, or the first Iraq War as we know it here in America. But let's not focus on that. Let's stick to the good stuff. So this is episode 1 of Series 4. Camille, directed by our usual cast of characters. We have directed by Ed Bye, written by Rob Grant and Doug Naylor. And of course, this came out on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1991. So let's now go to a summary. Lister helps Crichton to break his programming so he can lie and insult people. Later, when Crichton rescues a mechanoid named Camille, the sole survivor of a crashed spaceship, she appears to be his perfect mechanoid partner. However, Rimmer and Lister see her and she becomes their versions of fantasy women too. And secrets, lies, heartbreaks ensue. And along with an ending similar to Lister's favorite film, Casablanca. So let's break this episode down. The opening of Series 4 is very similar to that of Series 3, with the shots of, basically montage of things and scenes from the episodes of this series. We then go to the quarters where Crichton is in the process of basically trying to convince Crichton that a banana is an orange and get him to say it. He's trying to teach him how to lie, to break his programming. Which, considering the events of last day, this makes a lot of sense. The end of Series 3, trying to expand Crichton and his personality. And of course, he's very impressed by Lister's ability to lie. This is one of the things he admires him. And Lister says to him, I want you to learn to lie and cheat. And Crichton basically says, these things, traits he admires most in humans, such as being unpleasant, being deceitful, and being offensive. Finally, we have a breakthrough. He holds a banana, which he tries to convince him is an aardvark, and he eventually blurts out, small, off-duty Czechoslovakian traffic warden. And then they seem to go on this roll until the cat comes in, and then he can't do it. And he starts naming fruits, for which the cat is actually impressed and said you should be on that game show, name that fruit. But it's all wrong. Lister then tries to impart that lying is an essential to being humans. He references Casablanca, which will come up later, and about being one of his favorite movies, and the idea of the noble lie to protect somebody's feelings. He just can't do it. Crichton just can't do it. So Rimmer, though, then interrupts, and apparently Crichton is supposed to take him asteroid spotting. So he leaves to do that. Before he does that, Lister tries to get him to say about Rimmer that he's a smeghead. And when he tries to say it, it comes out as Smee-heen. And then he tries to insult Rimmer to his face, and it ends up sounding like Shmee-hee. On board the Starbug, he continues to do this while eventually they get a distress call. Holly, now with longer hair, Hattie Hayridge, Crichton says that they basically, there's a distress beacon, they should answer, and then he basically begins disobeying Rimmer's orders and lying to him. So he's finally actually breaking the programming. So back on the ship, this is apparently, and I'm very much assuming this is another knock on Star Trek The Next Generation. They have Tales of the Riverbank, The Next Generation. Lister and Rimmer are watching it, and apparently it's about Hammy Hamster. I'm assuming that's their William Shatner, and how apparently his career went downhill after the show ended. When Rimmer finally checks in, they've been gone for hours. He blames Lister's rebellion classes for all of this. He says that Crichton's gone to find the survivor of a crashed ship. They find one. It turns out to be a mechanoid. And then one of the reasons why they're responding to this is that supposedly this is on a moon that's in a decaying orbit, and there's a limited amount of time for which Rimmer does not want to risk their lives. Crichton on board the ship looking for the survivor. He nearly falls. He is saved by another mechanoid. This is Camille, played by Judy Pascoe. She is also like him, a 4000 series, but a GTI model with his more advanced human-like features. And she and Crichton immediately take to kind of hitting on each other. And there's something fishy going on here. She says they have a 93.75 compatibility factor, basically. And then in machine language, he tells her he loves her. And like I said, something very off. And you start getting kind of paranoid. Like, this is weird. This is like, you meet somebody online, they tell you within the first 5 minutes that you're their soulmate kind of thing. Rimmer breaks in. They come back to the ship. Back on Starbug, Rimmer then meets Camille, and immediately now we know something's off. When he meets her, it's a completely different person. In fact, now it is a beautiful female hologram, this version played by Francesca Folan. They are both experiencing very different impressions of her and her interactions, and she's now hitting on Rimmer. Also super compatible, just like Crichton. And Rimmer tries to then convince her to call him Duke, but that she does it around the other guys. They may not respond to it. It's once again himself trying to puff himself up. Crichton and Rimmer are now talking about her, talking both about liking her, but they're kind of talking past each other. It's like a hilarious double talk where it doesn't seem like neither one of them seems to put together that they're talking about the same person. Well, they think they're talking about the same person, but both of them are coming at it from different points of views. And every time we cut back to her in the area behind the cockpit, it still appears as Crichton's version. Get on the ship, Lister meets her in the sick bay, and immediately it's a woman who looks like she's right up his alley. Lister then pretends to be the ship's surgeon to hit on her, and this version of her is played by Suzanne Radigan, who apparently in the, I think, notes or something in credits version was the Kachansky Camille. The actress Suzanne Radigan does look a little bit like Kachansky. Lister tries to suggest that they have a duty to repopulate the universe and offers to get into his Spider-Man outfit for her. Rimmer comes in and offers worst date idea ever, telegraph poles. Both Rimmer and Lister are talking to her, and she seems to be telling both of them what they want to hear, and this is what finally tips Lister off that something's off. And Camille comes clean to him and basically admits that she is a pleasure gelf. Lister is talking to the cat, who is now very confused because he's now heard from Crichton and Rimmer, and they both describing the same person, but it's like, this thing makes sense. And this is when Lister explains what a pleasure gelf is. They basically are designed to be perceived by someone of the opposite, to be the perfect mate, to see what you most desire. Cat then decides to go in. He, of course, sees himself. Very vain, even gives himself a high five. The gang is now reflecting on the situation back in their quarters. They feel like they've been made foolish, and then Lister's like, it's not her fault. Camille comes in her mechanoid version to apologize, and then you see her in all the versions we've seen her in as both the hologram, the perfect girl for Lister, and as the cat himself. And when he apologizes to himself, the real cat calls her a heartbreaker. Really be hurting Crichton. This is what Camille's really upset. She felt a genuine sense of attraction to Crichton, not just a fake one. And then offers to turn into her real self, which is this kind of amorphous Dalek-looking blog. Speaking of Doctor Who, Crichton claims to still be attracted to her, which is a lie, unfortunately. He invites her to dinner. He gets in his tux. They go dining and dancing. They take Starbug for a spin. They're even watching Casablanca, which is where we get the whole mention again of the noble lie. Holly buzzes in. Camille has a mate, Hector, who's now shown up looking for her. He's been working on a cure. And Crichton then uses the situation to basically tell her she needs to go be with Hector. And it ends up playing out kind of exactly like Casablanca's ending. The whole "you'll regret it" speech, and then he says we'll always have parrots, which was the restaurant, but instead of Paris. And of course, when Lister and Crichton are walking off together, Crichton tells him it's the old story. Droid meets droid. Droid becomes chameleon. Droid loses chameleon. Chameleon turns into blob. Droid gets blob back again. Blob meets blob. Blob goes off with blob. Droid loses blob. Chameleon and droid. How many times have we seen this story? Crichton and Lister walk off. Lister calls him out for lying to her. Crichton, of course, blames Lister for all this and then calls him a smeghead. So he's finally broken his programming. Sort of a sweet, bittersweet, but just like Casablanca type ending. So that is where we are done. So we are now in Series 4, and next time we will be looking at DNA. So Please like, subscribe, follow, share. And as I've said many times before, if you like what we're doing here, if you want to just keep going steadily on Nothing But Red Dwarf, please tell me if you'd like me to start mixing it up and add in another series. We will be doing other TV series after this, but if you want me to mix it up now, I'm looking for feedback and suggestions on that. So we can make a change up here with another series along the way as we do, because we will be going through all of Red Dwarf. Do not get me wrong. But if that is not your flavor, like I said, there'll be other things. I've got stuff on Venture Brothers. I've got Andor, season 1 and 2, and I have... what was the last show I did? Who knows? I don't remember. But we've done other stuff before, and we'll do more stuff to come. I'll remember one day. Very much so. But in the meantime, if you want to see more stuff from the Not Funny Guys, we cover movies over on the Not Funny Guys Present Off the Reels podcast, where we talk about films. We're currently in our very popular Star Wars run, getting a lot of attention. We're kind of just now getting into the original trilogy starting next week. So we just finished Rogue One. So you can check out all those films. We've been going in chronological order. So we've done episodes 1, 2, 3, and we've done Solo, and we've done Rogue One. We're going chronological order inside the universe. We'll be moving on to A New Hope, and then the week after that, we'll be continuing the original trilogy and into the sequels. I'm not looking forward to the sequels at all, actually. So far, we've been on a really good run, generally speaking, until then. But we'll see how that goes down. If you're curious or more interested, let's say that's not your flavor, we have the other Not Funny Guys, Casey and Eric, my colleagues, they do their Wrestling with the Horror of It All podcast, where they talk about wrestling and horror movies. In fact, they will be going to Fright Night in like a week and a half's time. So actually, by the time this comes out, it'll only be a week late till they'll be there. So they're going to put out tons of content. If you want to follow it, you can look in the description for our social media. They'll be posting there all the time. If you want to talk to me or any of us about any of our things, you can always write us at notfunnyguys.offthereels@gmail.com. And then we have one other podcast we're doing. If you are interested in more intellectual kind of thinking out loud kind of stuff, or teaching or anything of that nature, me and our Not Funny gal, Dr. Kristen, do Thinking About Thinking. That is our podcast. We do one a week, usually comes out on Thursdays. You can check that out and see if it's interesting. We have one coming out about American mythology and kind of cooking and food and how all that ties into the sort of nostalgia and myth of America, which was a really good episode. So check those things out if you want to. Otherwise, like, subscribe, and come back here for more. And I'll see you next time. But remember, until then, don't be a smeghead. Keep it not funny.